All right, so welcome again for our first night of Lightroom. And we are going to kind of start at the beginning. As I mentioned, the first part of this is going to be about getting your catalogs in order, getting your organization to make sense, and what are the best practices? What are the things that are going to keep you from pulling your hair out later because you can't find something or your catalog's gotten screwed up? As I just mentioned, both of my hard drives that I store my images on are both full, and they're both 8 terabyte drives. So actually probably on Friday, I've decided I'm going to go buy a 14 terabyte drive and start migrating all of my images over to it because I've run out of room. So the way my storage is set up, my internal drive is just for applications. I don't store anything on there. Externally, though, I have 4 8 terabyte drives and one 5 terabyte drive. And that's for redundancy. My image drives, I have 2 image drives, and one just backs up to the other automatically. The other 2 are for videos, and videos will take up a lot of room really fast. So I definitely need more room for that. So when all is said and done, excuse me, I'm not going to have to buy 4 more drives because I'm going to end up clearing off 2 of my 8 terabyte drives to do that. I also have the 5 terabyte external, which is sort of my, we all have a kitchen junk drawer. Well, that's kind of my junk drawer for my computer. So that one stays the same. And then on top of that, right now, I have 1 terabyte and one terabyte solid state drive plugged into my machine because I want to talk about what to do if you're traveling. And again, with the show of hands on your screen, how many of you will travel with a laptop or so and have an external drive with you to do image stuff? So yeah, some of you do that. And then what do you do when you get home? How do you make that all work? So that's something as well. So let's start right from the beginning. Let's start with organization. And the whole key about organization is, really having it make sense to you. That said, there are a couple of things that I will highly recommend. The first thing you need to do, and this is including if you're starting again from scratch with a new catalog or a new version of Lightroom, or you've been doing this for years and you need to start again. And that's to pick a single drive to put all your images in. All your images should be on this one drive. And when you do that, buy 2 of them. We'll get to the why in a minute. You should all obviously be doing backup. Now, how to store images? Well, let me go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. If I can, I lost that again. Share my screen. There we go. Share screen. Okay, there's my desktop. All right, you guys should all see my screen now. All right, so here you can see my screen. Here is my travel Lightroom catalog. But I'm going to back out of Lightroom. I'm going to hide it for a minute and just go onto my hard drive. And you can see all the drives I've got plugged into my computer right now. So we're going to do some make-believe. This Samsung Blue is just a 500 gigabyte SSD drive that I believe has a fair amount of room on it. Let's see. Let's hit Command-I, and yeah, it's still got 180 gigs left. So here's what I would do. Imagine this is blank. I don't want to completely erase it. Excuse me. Get yourself a new drive. Create a folder structure that makes sense to you. How many, can you see everybody's screen? How many of you store your images by date? Get some hands raised in there. Don't do that. Do it by something that makes sense to what the photography is. First of all, unless you have a really good reason for it, you should only be working with one catalog. And you should be backing it up. But honestly, if you have old catalogs, you should get rid of them. They're just going to cause trouble. What I do, since I'm primarily a landscape photographer, is my main image catalog, if you see on my drive here, is called Location. So I'm going to make believe it's something different. So let's say for you guys, you want to call it, Photos. So I'm just going to create a new folder here and call it Photos. So that's where all my images are going to go. Do not use your system's pictures thing. Don't do it. You're just going to be bad. Make sure all your photos are going to be stored on this external drive. Now, if I open up this photos file, there's nothing in it right now. But again, I generally deal with locations. So I will create new folders for each place I go. So let's make believe, I'll start right at A and I'll call it Acadia. And then I'll do another new one and we'll just call it Cape Cod. And I'll do a third one and I'll call it Grand Teton. Okay, so in here are where all the images from these places would go. Now, we'll get to how and when to bring the images into here, but here's my structure. If you want to do something that's got family in it, something that's got other travel, something that's got some sort of hobby, then by all means, do that. How you store your stuff doesn't matter other than it has to make sense to you. And I highly recommend don't do dates. Now, if you wanted to put years in here because you can't help yourself, like if I wanted to do, 2000, I've been going to Grand Teton a long time, 2010 to 2024, and have one for each year, I could do that. But there's really no reason to because Lightroom can do that for you later. So I've got my images, I've got my locations. It could be a subject matter, it could be trips that you've taken, etc. But don't waste your time doing things by date. I don't know how many of you can remember what you did last Thursday, let alone trying to find a picture you took 8 years ago. So that's why I recommend not doing that. File renaming, should you do it? I've always done it in the past, and I think I'm about to give it up. There's some finding lost files reasons for doing it. I always renamed my images on import. I think I'm going to leave them alone from now on and just make sure that they're in each of these folders. And then when we get into Lightroom, we'll talk about collections. Now, I see Andy mentioned location and date. The reason you don't have to do date is, and I'll show you this in Lightroom, you don't need to. Lightroom knows the date. You can create collections by date, or you can find things by date easily. There's no reason for you to store them that way. However, it's a left brain, right brain thing to do, if you're really into that kind of thing. If dates make sense to you, okay, do it. All I'm saying is you don't have to, and you'll see why when we go into Lightroom. The other big question is, where should your catalog live? Should it be on your internal drive? Should it be on your external drive? Interesting opinions here. Scott Kelby on his Lightroom classes said you should store your catalog on your internal drive and all your images on an external drive. Adobe says no. Adobe says your catalog should be on the same drive with your images. Personally, I agree with that because you can then take that drive and plug it into any computer. And since the catalog is already on the drive with all the images, there's no linking ever necessary. It knows that it's there because the catalog's on that drive. Now, of course, you wouldn't want to lose those images. And that's okay because you're not going to, because you're going to back them up. And you should be backing them up at least one other place. Hopefully, you should think about backing them up in 2 different places. Meaning, if you don't have an absolutely huge amount of photos, do some kind of cloud-based backup. One of the ones that I'm looking at is something called Backblaze. That's become one of the most popular ones. It's going to take some time to upload your entire file, but it's there. Let's see. Thoughts on, okay, so someone asked thoughts about a RAID. I'm not a big fan of RAIDs for image storage. One, because speed is not necessarily an issue. And two, depending on how your RAID is set up, it's not completely uncommon for one of your RAID drives to fail. And if you're striping between both drives for speed, you're going to lose your images. So could you do RAID? Yes, but you're better off when you have this second drive for your backup to have the ability to easily take it somewhere else. Whenever we go away, we're going on a workshop or a vacation, at least one of each of my drives, one of my image drives, one of my video drives, leaves the house. Because I know that if anything were to happen, they are in a place that's not my house. So if anything happened to the house, my images are safe. So I do not store everything here when I'm not home. And I would consider doing something like Backblaze to have a third. Now, I do have a lot of drives around. I have a complete set of another set of drives that are never in the house. And maybe once a month, I'll bring them into the house and back up to them as well. So it's all about maintaining the images. The computer this could all blow up. But as long as I have drives not in the house, then I know they're safe. So I want to create a new catalog. So I'm going to back out of photos and put a new catalog on here. So you can actually see I have one here called Blue Catalog. And you can do it here or do it in Lightroom. And we'll get to that in a second. Actually, I think it actually might be time. I think we can do it. Now, here's another thing. Do you want to copy your images into these folders first? Or do you want to import them through Lightroom? Kind of 6 of one, half a dozen another. It depends if you want to rename your images on import. If you want to do it, definitely do it from within Lightroom. If you're just going to copy all your images from your last Grand Teton trip into your Grand Teton folder and then tell Lightroom to add them, you can do that. Personally, I prefer doing it while I'm in Lightroom rather than copying them over for a handful of reasons. And I think maybe it's time we go into Lightroom to do that. All right, so actually let's create a new catalog. We'll create one from scratch. So I'm going to make believe I don't have a catalog or I'm starting over again. So I'm going to create a new catalog. And I'm going to put it on this Samsung drive, and we'll call it Tuesday night. And I click on Create. I'm just going to skip this one. It was backed up just earlier today. So it's going to create a new catalog, which is going to have nothing on it. So here's our Tuesday night catalog, and this is now on that external drive. So what I can do is click Import to begin. So if I click on Import, my drives are spinning up. They all fell asleep, so give me a second. Okay, so I click on Import, and I do have a memory card here. Let's hold off on that. Where are we going to import? If we're going to import from a card or from a previous location. If you're doing this from an existing catalog, you can import from another catalog too. Hold that thought. So if I go back to my locations folder here, on the left-hand side is basically showing me all the drives that are currently on my desktop. That's all that is doing over here. And if I go into my locations, I can open locations, and let's see, what do I have? I've got, we'll choose Paris. So Paris 2023. So here are all the images from that particular trip that are in this folder. Now up on the top, there are a handful of decisions you have to make here. Copy as DNG is one. Copy, move, and add. So copy as DNG. A DNG is a digital negative file. What that's going to do is put your file in a box. There's advantages and disadvantages to DNGs. The disadvantage is they're bigger. And if you include the image in the DNG file, it's going to be a somewhat bloated file. It takes a while to do it, but it's not that big a deal. The advantage of a DNG is as you do edits in Lightroom, what happens is if you have a DNG file, they're built into the file. They travel with it. If you're just going to copy them over, any edits you do end up in a file that sits next to it. Now, as long as those edits stay with the file, they're in a file called the sidecar, they will travel with it. That's okay. So copy is just going to bring them in as is, and you can see these are just image names. The ones that are called image are actually iPhone photos. The ones that have names are images that had previously been imported and named. Move. I don't see any reason to ever use Move. It's going to actually take them off the drive and put them onto another drive. I don't think I'd like to do that from within Lightroom, so I would skip that one. And then there's Add. Now this is on an external drive, not a drive I would want to use. My two primary drives are these two 8 terabytes, the MyBook and the Seagate are my 8 terabyte drives. Oh, I forgot I have another one. This is a brand new one that I haven't really started using yet. Add is going to just add the images into your Lightroom catalog and leave them where they are. So nothing is moving at all when you just click on Add. All you're doing is you're creating a link in Lightroom to that file on that drive. So if I wanted to add all of these, I have these choices. So since they're already on this external drive, which happens to be on the same drive as my catalog, the new catalog we just created, I can just simply hit Add. Now over on the right hand side, there are a couple of options. We've got file handling and apply during import. So file handling, add to collection is something you could do. We're not going to do that because there's going to be an easier way to do that. If I already had a collection of Paris images, maybe I'd go ahead and add it. But since this is the first time, we can skip that. Under apply during import, develop settings, something I doubt you're going to do on import. Metadata. Do you want to put presets in metadata, which would mean your name, any kind of notes about you, about where it was taken, etc., etc. And then there's keywords. I don't know how many of you use keywords. I wish I was better at using keywords. I am an absolute mess as far as it. So I could say Paris. I could say Paris. I could say, oh, I don't know what else. See, that's why I'm so terrible at keywords. I can't think about whatever else I'd want to say about these, so I'm not going to bother. But if you're really good with keywords, it's another way to find things. But Lightroom has an amazing amount of ways to find things, so that's why I don't concern myself with keywords that much. So I'm going to hit import, and what it's going to do is add all of those images. Now it's asking me, do I want Lightroom to figure out where the things are? I don't know how the address look up. No, I don't care. I know it's in Paris. That's fine. So it's importing all the images. And you see them coming in, and it's building the little thumbnails for each of the images. Lovely. Now, on the left-hand side, we have catalog, folders, collections, and published services. I don't know how many of you are into social media. Published services are things like that. I never use this. I'm sure you can. If you want to send right to Facebook, you can. Catalog is where all your images are. Think that's all the catalog is. Think of it literally as a file cabinet. And in that file cabinet are the individual folders and of the places that you go. And in the individual folders are subfolders maybe that you organize by subject matter or date or etc. Now under that we have folders. And if I open this up, right now I only have this one folder showing up from the Samsung Blue because that's the only thing that has been imported in from this drive. One warning about the folders section over here. This is actually your drive. This is actually looking at your drive. If I were to go into here and delete this, it will actually delete all the images. So don't mess with the folders file. What I can, however, do is have them put into a collection automatically. Now, other than the smart collections that start out, I don't have any collections. But if I control or right click on here, look at this. It says, do you want to create a collection called Paris 2023? So if I click on that, I'll call it that. Notice now under my collections, I have Paris 2023, which is all my images that we just imported. Now we didn't copy anything. It's just a temporary grouping of them. I could then reorganize these in whatever way that makes sense or delete them. If I delete them from here, they're not going away. It's just part of a collection. So what a collection is, it's a temporary grouping. And we'll continue to work on this over tonight and tomorrow, and even a little bit when we're doing Photoshop. Collections are one of the most important things in Lightroom because it really allows you to find things much easier. And again, don't mess with moving or deleting stuff in here, in your folders file, because if you delete it, you're actually messing around with your hard drive. So do not do that. So I've got my collection here. And when people ask about how to sort, well, right now, if we look at the bottom of the screen, it says sort by capture time, added order, etc., etc. I can change by rating. Show me from highest to lowest. Now, if you look next to where it says rating, you'll see Z to A, which is highest to lowest. If I click on that, it will now go from the lowest rating to the highest rating. But how do you find files? Well, let's go. Well, when we go to a regular catalog, we'll see this. But while I'm in the library module, and the library module is where you sort stuff. If I hit the / key, you get this bar up on the top, the library filter, where I can sort any text. So, for example, if any of these are panoramics, I would have the word pano in the file because that's what happens when they get created. So if I type pano over in here, there we go. It automatically shows me just the images that are panos. You can go to attribute, which is going to be, if you've rated it, just show me the 1 through 5. Show me the ones that have had a color label assigned to them. Here's all the ones that I assigned a red label to. I don't even know why, but there they are. And then we have attribute flags, which we're going to talk about when we import from a card. And if you've done any edits, you can actually say, show me the ones that have had edits done on them. Metadata is where it gets crazy, where you can tell it what camera shot it, what lens shot it. Do you have labels? But if you see that as you go on here, let's say I click next to, let's click next to labels, and you get to see all of the things you can sort by. So if you want to say, show me all the images I've ever taken on a Tuesday, you can do that. Or the file type, or any of these things, down to the point where you can actually go down to the serial number of the camera. Let's say if you happen to have two of the same model cameras, you can tell it which serial number. And you can sort your images this way. And then once you do that, if you like, you can create a collection. So if you want to see a collection of all your images that you have shot at 24 millimeters, it will do that for you. So let's see, what did again, the question was, how did I get this? It's the / key on your keyboard that will toggle that on and off while you're in the library mode. It's an important one. Why is there a filter called none up here? I guess that's just a reset. So when I go into my main catalog, you will see lots of different cameras here and lots of different years here. But also, as these are defaults, I can see that, okay, I've got my Olympus 8 to 25 from this trip. I only used 2 lenses on this trip, apparently. And then the 12 to 45. So there they are sorted by lens. And I can also click none and go back to there. So that is an extremely powerful way, excuse me, of doing your sorting. So you can let Lightroom do this. And here's the other cool thing. If you want to have, I don't know, a collection of your best images ever shot from a particular camera, you can sort them that way. So for example, let's do that again, /. So I go to metadata, and I want just images shot with the OM1, and I only want the ones that I shot with the 8 to 25 millimeter lens. And there they are. There they are, sorted by their rating in that order. If for some reason I wanted to then say create a book of this, let's say I want to do a book of Paris shot with 8 to 25 millimeter lens, I can select all these images, click on collection, and create a collection and call it Paris OM1. I would never do this, but you could. 8 to, I forgot what the lens was, 25 millimeter. and hit create. Oh, I forgot to say include all the images. Since I didn't do that, I can just drag these to that collection. So now if I go back to none here, here's my whole 109 images that I've brought in. Now if I click on here, these are the images just shot with the OM1 that were shot with that particular lens. Again, for date-wise, when you see my entire catalog, then that will make more sense. Questions so far? Let's see. Okay. The bottom line for this whole organizational thing is it has to make sense to you. Store things in a way that makes sense to you. We're all wired differently, left brain, right brain. I'm more of a right brain person, so for me, having my folders with all my locations is what makes sense. If something else makes sense to you, that's okay. Just the bottom line is it just needs to make sense. Now, one of the things that gets people in trouble is they will rename or they'll move their files. If you move your files, in fact, let's go do that. Let's exit out of Lightroom for a second. Let's go into here and let's see my locations. So here's the Paris. These are all the Paris shots loading in. And let's say for giggles, oh, this one. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to drag it out onto my desktop. And then I'm going to delete it out of here. So I'm going to delete that. Actually drag it to the trash. All right, that's now gone. I moved it. And now when I look at all my images, one of them is going to show a question mark. Let's see, what was it? 2060. So how are these? Let's see, let's do 2060 in my text. Ah, there it is. See, if I had to find it, I knew the file number had 2060 in it. There it is. So now I do this. Here's the image. But did you notice, let me make this bigger, there's an exclamation point on here, which means, look, you can see the photo is missing. And if I go to develop it, it won't let me because it can't find it, because I moved it. If you move it or change its name, Lightroom can't find it anymore. And it's not Lightroom's fault. It's a database. And again, a database is just a link out to where you told it the images were. If you then move the images, you got to tell Lightroom. So the easiest way to do it is go to Find File. Now I could go up to Photo and find and go through all these things, but here's one you're going to remember because you're going to use it all the time, and it's Command R, Show in Finder. So you hit, if you're on a Windows machine, it's Control R. So I hit Command R and it says it can't be found. Rather than click on Locate and go searching around, here's what I do. I will actually highlight the name of the file, copy it, Command C, click on Locate, and then in the search function in my Locate, I paste in the file number, and it will go out onto my computer. Yep, again, all my drives fell asleep. And when it's done loading, it will eventually show up on here. Come on. There it is. Oh, apparently I had a bunch of them. Oh, yeah, because they are on my other drives. So there it is. Actually, that's not the one. Where's the one sitting on my desktop? Let's see. There it is, desktop. So I click on Select, and it will reconnect with the file. Give it a second. Okay, now it's there. What do you mean you can't find it? My exclamation point went away and it's still telling me it can't find it. That's odd. All right, I admit I don't know what it just did. Maybe it's just taking its time. Let's go back to all my photographs. Yeah, oh, let me get rid of that. Let me go back to all my photographs. And again, what was it called? 109. And apparently I did not bring it back in. One more time. Let's see. It was the one with the girl in the alley, right? Okay. Right. Where did I come up with 109? I'm looking at the name of the folder, the image on my screen, and it's 2060. Where did I come up with 109? 2060. There it is. Okay. Now I can bring it up. Okay. Now I click on develop and there it is. It helps when you actually ask it for the right number. So the image has been reconnected because Command R, which you would think it'd be find, it's not. It's show in Finder. And then you can then go in your search function of your computer and find it. All right, again, back to the library module. Let's see. A couple of people are asking about RAID drives. Nope, that's it. We can continue on. So are you clear on these beginning parts? And I'm going to write up some more stuff, some more notes to be able to share with you that will allow all this to kind of sink in a little bit more. I'll send you some documents that go over these kind of things that we're talking about. But I'd like to go back to my real catalog. So Tom Miller asked the question, do you correct for your lens when you import? Correct for my lens? No, I don't. I'll decide that afterwards. So let me go back to my catalog that we were working on. Here's my original catalog that I had prepared for tonight. And we'll be able to see some more stuff here. All right, so here's the catalog I had set up for us to work off of. There's a lovely image that we can do something with. All right, so again, on the left-hand side, this catalog has got 20,000 images. If I hit the / key and look at attributes and things and metadata, now you'll see, look at all the years we have. Look at all the cameras I have. I've shot a lot of cameras over the years from pretty much every manufacturer. 79 different lenses, 50 cameras, 79 different lenses. So they're all over the place. But if I want to know, show me all the images in this catalog shot with a Canon 7D, there they are. That was it. Those were 7D. So if I want to see the images I shot in 2020, there they are. And if I open up the little arrow for 2020, I can say, well, let me see what I shot in May of 2020. So that, to me, is the reason to not bother organizing by date, because Lightroom has infinite abilities. I can even open the May thing. Oh, apparently the only photography I did was Monday the 25th of May that year in whatever that was. 2020, Monday the 25th of May. Here's all the images I shot that day on that camera. So you can see how the way you can dig down is amazing.
Dave has a question.
Dave, yes. Hi, Dave. Dave, you had a question. Actually, I'm going to mute people so you don't hear background noise. I'm going to mute you for a second. You guys can unmute manually yourself. So Dave asked the question, do I prefer Lightroom Classic over Lightroom CC? That gets confusing when it's worded that way. It's Lightroom Classic CC and Lightroom Mobile or Lightroom. I don't know who spent a lot of time trying to figure out that naming convention. You should be using one of them, is in my opinion, not both of them. Lightroom Classic is like Coke Classic. It's the one that we've been working with for years and always worked. The other Lightroom is really designed for mobile photography. If you're going to use it for your iPhone stuff, great. But it's missing a bunch of stuff for editing on the computer, so I don't recommend that you use both of them. I would just pick the one. All right, so let's see. Let's go back. I'm going to hit my / key. I can hide that menu again. So again, on the left-hand side, here's my catalog. And again, the catalog is your file cabinet. Folders. Now you can see a bunch of drives are showing up that have stuff on them. And if the little white arrow is lit up, that means there are some images on that particular drive that are in this catalog. If I were to say move this, like for example, here, this is the Samsung Blue. If I were to drag this folder this Grand Teton folder onto here, it would actually move all the images off of this drive and put them on the other drive. The good thing is Lightroom would see you do it, so you would not have to reconnect them. The bad news is they'll be gone off of that one drive. So again, just understand, be careful messing about with anything in the folders section here. Let the collection, you can see I'm big on collections. Collections are really handy. Highly recommend that you do your organization that way. For example, I put together all the images that I wanted to use for Zoom demos for these. And here's the images I have ready for the next couple of nights to be able to show you how to do stuff. Are these copies of all the other stuff? No. And if I click on, say, this image and go back to my catalog and hit the catalog, it shows me in the catalog where that image is along with everything else in the catalog. There's handy reasons for being able to do that. I come back to here, and this is just the collection. You can have the same image in as many collections as you like. They're just temporary groupings. They're just copies of the thumbnails that are being organized for some particular purpose. In this case, I created the collection to be able to have easy access to demonstration images for you guys. Again, published services, not something I get into. I mean, what's even on here? I know Facebook can be added here. Flickr, yeah, I've never been on Flickr. I have no idea what's there. So again, the library module over here is for organization and importing, and that's not something we have done yet. So let's go to import, and because this is going to be important. We're going to import from a camera card. So I took a card out of my camera that has got images that are not in this catalog, so I'll let them come up. And these are from my, I guess these are these are from my previous camera. The RAF is the signal for Fujifilm. So these would have been shot on one of my Fuji cameras. I had a couple of those. And it's just generating thumbnails for all of these. And after it's done, I don't think there's too many. Yeah, it's not too bad. After this is done, we will take a look at the options about bringing them in. Now, do I want to import this one? Don't really see a reason for it. So I can cut to the, oh, that's odd. It just moved. So what's going to happen is, I forgot to mention this, up on the top, when you're going to import off of a card or from another drive, you can look at all the photos there or just new photos. So if it comes across any photos that are already in your catalog, it won't show them to you. It'll save you the trouble of trying to do that. You can also group photos by where you want them to go destination-wise. I'm not that organized. That's going to be something I'm going to do later. But I am going to put them in, because I am going to put them in a particular folder. Why? Because these are coming off a card. Notice I only have copy as DNG and copy as options. Move and add are grayed out. The reason for that is you can't add images off of a camera card, and you cannot move them. They can just stay there. You can either delete them or you can copy them over. That's it. So these have to be copied over to another drive. So let's see, are we done? Yeah, it's still generating its little thumbnails, so let it go for a second. Now, they're all checked. Do I need this one? Obviously not. That can go. What else? Also, when I'm importing, if I happen to have video files on the card, I generally import my video files to a different place. They don't go in my normal image catalog, and I see there are no video files on here. They would have a little icon of a camera there. So these are all fine. So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and import these. So let's come over to the right-hand side and look at our options when we import. File handling. Yes, I don't want to import suspected duplicates. Build smart previews. What are smart previews? Smart previews are big one-to-one previews that would be full screen that obviously take longer and they take up a lot more memory. But what a Smart Preview allows you to do, if you're working on an external drive, yet you have your catalog elsewhere, and again, another reason I don't like to have my catalog elsewhere, it allows you to actually do edits to images that are not currently connected to your computer. And then when you reconnect that drive where those images live, it will apply those edits to it. Some people like to work that way when they're working mobily. I do not. I do have my travel catalog, which is what we're looking at right now, that is on a Samsung 2 terabyte SSD drive. When I get home, that gets connected to my computer, and then I will import all of these into my main catalog. We'll get to that. Make a second copy too. Not a bad idea, but I would hope that you have instead some sort of backup system. I use a software on the Mac called SuperDuper. And I admit I do not know what the current best choices are for Windows for doing automatic backup. But what my drives are scheduled to do is every night, my two photo drives back up to each other. First one backs up to one, and then the other one backs up the other way in case for some reason I screwed up and there were some images on the copy drive that were not on the main drive. The same thing happens for my two video drives. The problem is, again, as I mentioned, I've run out of room, so I need to get two more of bigger drives for my photos. So I don't do second copy because I have a software that backs up everything on that drive every night. Add to collection. If I want, upon import, I can add these to a collection. However, in this particular case, I think there's maybe multiple trips here. Let's see. Are these all? No, they're not. There's some Savannah images here and some Portland, Maine shots here. So let's do that. Let's select from here down to here. I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm going to click on the checkbox, and that's going to not import those images. I'm just going to import these and I'm going to put them in a folder called main. Now, there's also an option up here in the source called eject after import. Do I want to do that? Normally, yes, but since I'm going to do imports twice, I'm not going to do that. Add to collection? Sure, why not? Do I have a collection for main? No. So let's make one. On this where it says add to collection, I click on plus and I'm going to put main and hit create. And notice over here, it now adds a new collection called main here. So then I mentioned file renaming. I used to be big on file renaming with shoot name and original file number. And I think I'm going to stop doing that because it's caused me some troubles. I'm just going to do the file name the way that it's coming in, and you see it exactly matches what's on the camera. Extensions, yeah, leave it alone. I'm done with file renaming. Apply during import. Do you have some kind of developed setting you want to do? I don't typically. If you were, say, a wedding photographer and you always wanted to bring the highlights down and the shadows up and boost your saturation a little bit, you could do that. But you can also quickly do it after the fact. It's up to you. Keywords. Again, I can say this is Maine, Portland, and I think there's some Acadia shots. Acadia. Fine. I just did keywords. I'm so proud of myself. Then destination. Where are these going? Which drive are they going onto and in which folder? Well, I want to put these, I'm going to put them in the same drive we're working on. If you let Lightroom make this determination, you will be very sad very quickly. Do not do it. You have to override Lightroom. Pick a drive. So for me, let's see, where do I want to put these? So I'm going to put them on the same drive that this catalog is on, which is right here. And there's my Monday morning coffee. Here's my locations folder. And look at that. I already have a main folder. Of course, I forgot. Oh, let's see. When was this? 9 months ago. Great. Why can't you tell me the date? What month was 9 months ago? Do I really have to count back? Was that last September? Sure, why not? We're going with last September. So I click on Main 9 2023. Now notice, strangely enough, it has this italicized folder underneath it because I also have chosen put it into a subfolder within that folder. I could do that. Maybe there's another reason I might want to do it. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to turn that off and notice it goes away. Now what's going on over here is that this again is my drive, but it's only a destination. When we make this new folder or a folder on the drive in my destination, it's actually creating it on the drive external to your out on your computer. So this is actually creating a new folder on your drive to put these images in. And again, I decided I don't need that one. And is there any other options? We got destination. Yeah, that's it. Now I simply click on import, and it's going to import my images with their standard preview, rather than the smart preview with the big giant one-to-one screenshots of the images. Now, when you go to edit, Lightroom will individually automatically res up the image to fill the screen. The whole thing about smart previews is it allows you to do edits on an image that you don't actually have connected to the computer. I don't know too many people that actually work that way. The solid state drives are what I highly recommend for when you're traveling. You can drop them. There's no moving parts. I love the Samsung T5 and T7 SSDs. They're relatively inexpensive and they're super fast. So if you're going to have a travel computer, I highly recommend doing your catalog, have a travel catalog and your travel images on that drive. Okay, so these are starting to come in, and while let's let it do a couple before I pick one that maybe I want to edit. Actually, yeah. So as you're bringing in images, this is something that we're all terrible at, and that's deciding after I look at the images come in full screen to decide right away if you're going to keep them or get rid of them. So as these are coming in, I can click on here and see this full screen and make a decision, is it worth keeping? What would I recommend doing? Well, you've got the arrow keys on your keyboard, so I can just start hitting left, right, and decide if I want them. What do I choose to say if I want them? I could not do anything, or if I come across one I definitely don't want, like that one's really boring, no reason to keep it. I think I shot it as a bad example of composition because it was dead center. And as I do that, I'm going to keep it for another reason. That one, that one, no, I don't like that one. So I'm going to hit X. And what X does is it rejects the file. And again, if I make this bigger down here, you can see now it's got a flag, a black flag with an X in it. So do I want that one? Not particularly fond of that one, although it's showing Portland Lighthouse way off in the distance on the right. Maybe. Ooh. No, I don't like that. That's going. X. No, don't like it. X. Messy. Interesting to just show the view from the other side of the lighthouse, but no. So by doing this, you're going to save yourself a whole lot of editing time because you're going to get rid of stuff up front. Do I like that one? These two really. You have to be brutal. Don't be nice. If you don't think you're going to actually ever use the thing, get rid of it. Let's see. The only thing that attracts me to this is this ship here, but it's in such a bad spot. But all I can think of is I'll bring this into Photoshop and move that ship over to here to make it interesting. So that's why I'm keeping that one. Same with that. That one's kind of getting closer. Yeah, same there. This one that's dead center, all of a sudden I'm starting to like it. So we actually might edit that. That one's the same thing, a little further out. Yeah, we'll leave that. And then this one, because they have the lighthouse in the background. And that one. Okay. The rest of them we got rid of. Oh, now we've got more coming in. Do I like that? Yeah, it's got the sailboat in the background. I don't like that one. Why? There's not enough foreground light or water, so that goes. All right. Do I like that? No, that was a mistake. Is there any reason to keep it? Is there any reason to bring it in and make yourself look at it or when you go and do your edit? No, that goes. That's kind of cool. I'll keep those. Yeah.
Donna's asking if it deletes it from the hard drive too.
Oh, good question. So the question is, when I hit this X, do they get deleted from the hard drive? The answer is not yet. We are flagging these. That's what this is called. Now, I can also have ones that I can mark as pics. So if I have one that I really like, all right, I've decided I really like that. I can hit the P key, which gives it a white flag. That means, yeah, that's something I want to take a closer look at. And this silly one that I was ready to delete, actually, I think I like that one better. Yeah, I something about that. I got to do something with it. Yeah, fine. These other ones are fines, but I haven't decided I want to do it.
And Steve asks, how do you reverse X if you change your mind about it?
Good question. How do you revert if you accidentally hit an X and you made a mistake? You didn't want to exit. Like say if all of a sudden, oh, I got a friend that installs solar panels. He's going to love this. You hit the U key, which means unflag. So now it's back. Here, see, notice the X is gone. I don't like it, so it's going away. But if you accidentally flag something, either a remove or a pick with the white flag, you will unflag it. And by the way, this is one of the few times in Lightroom where the keyboard shortcuts actually match the action. Most of the times they do not. I mean, kind of a boring photograph, but just I found the ship kind of interesting. I am also obsessed with tugboats. Not an interesting shot, but it's a tugboat. I'm sorry, I can't delete tugboats. Actually, I might use it as a study for a watercolor painting. That's what I'm thinking. All right, that's terrible. That's terrible. All right, this is Portland Light looked at from a long distance away. Am I going to ever really use any of these? Honestly, no. I've got so many great shots of this lighthouse from close by. So they can all go. Now it's continuing to import and bring in images. And if I hit the G key, which is the same as clicking on this grid here, you get to see what's happened so far. And you can see all of the X's. So Donna, again, had asked, does it delete it from the hard drive? Well, now I have a decision to make. If I go up to photo, and it's going to continue to do its image building, that's fine. Down at the bottom of photo is delete rejected photos. And if I click on that, it's still not going to do it yet. If I click on it, it's going to ask, do you just want to take it out of Lightroom? You don't want to actually delete it from the drive, or do you want to delete it from the disk? Here's what I say, delete it from the disk. If it really didn't work for you, it's never going to work for you. Just save the room and save yourself the time, delete it from the disk, and now those images are gone. They're deleted from the disk, so I don't have to worry about them showing up on my doorstep again. Now, again, the software is still doing some importing here. I don't know why it's taking so long coming off of this card. Probably because I'm importing from a card and then exporting it out to a SSD drive. Oh, somebody's just showing up. You're late. Okay. So, yeah, this is going to continue doing its thing. Now, I'm looking at the clock, and I'm seeing it's 7:58. How about if we take 5 minutes to just get up and stretch, and I'm just going to get a drink of water, and then we'll come back. We'll take some questions. We have a few more things I want to do in the organizational side, and then we're going to start to get into the thought process between some of the basic Lightroom edits. Basic, but still powerful. And I want to show you some of the new tools in the basic panel that have become really powerful. All right, so I'll see you in 5 minutes. So 2 ways to do it. One, if you go into the actual folders on your hard drive and you go to copy them over, you will see all the images there. And then you'll also see these other small files. I think the extension's THM, which is your editing data. So it'll have the same file name with the extension. It's called a sidecar file. You can copy that over, and when you will reattach those, so if you go into your Lightroom and import them from whatever folder you copied into, the edit data will come with it. However, there's an easier way, And as soon as everybody's back, I will show you that. You can actually just import from another Lightroom catalog. So you're saying that you have images on a catalog, say on your laptop, and you want to put them on a catalog on your, say, desktop machine. Is that what you're saying? I do. I have it because of the size of them. I have a travel catalog on my 2 terabyte, and then my main catalog is on my 8 terabyte. It would be nice to have them be the same catalog, but I can't do that. So let me go back into share my screen a second. Let's see, share screen. Okay, so right now, I happen to be in the cloud, the iCloud app. There was a question, I think it was from Dave, about Lightroom versus Lightroom Classic. So you see Lightroom right here in the middle, cloud-based photo service. That is the mobile Lightroom. And then Lightroom Classic is what we're working in. Lightroom Classic is the full-blown editing app. Lightroom is the cloud-based photo service, again, designed for mobile imaging. Is there overlap in the two? Yes, you can edit in Lightroom as well, just not as deeply as you can in Lightroom Classic. It gets confusing between the two of them. Lightroom allows you to easily sync between different devices that are online and in cloud storage, but for photo editing, Lightroom Classic is the answer. So I just wanted to bring that up a second. Let me hide this. So let's go over into Lightroom. All right, I'm actually going to stop this at this point. I don't know why this is taking so long. I really don't need... I should have just imported like 10 images. I don't know why it's taking so long. But another option you have, so if I was in my main catalog, I would, as soon as this is going to stop for me, you can stop now. Okay, it stopped. Another option you have is if you travel with a drive that's got your travel catalog on it, and then you come home and you want to bring them into your main catalog, you can go to import from another catalog. So that's what I do. When I get home, I will go out to my drive. Well, say, for example, I've got this other SSD drive here. I don't want to import stuff that's, let's see. Oh, for some reason it wanted to go out to one of my other drives. Okay, where's that? Here we go. So make believe that I didn't have this folder, these images in my catalog. I can choose here to bring in. So I have to go to my catalog. All right, so here's my catalog on a drive I'm not using right now. So if I choose that, Lightroom will go up and look at it. It's going to import from another catalog. It's first going to go take a look to see what's there. And then when it's done, you'll see all the collections of the images, and I can choose to import all or just individual folders of them as soon as it's done. Does that make sense? There we go. Okay, so here's all the images on that other drive. And I can do all of them, or let's say, for example, I have these 3 images from London that I want to bring into my other catalog. I can do that. But if I just went on a trip, for example, let's see. All right, I was in Sedona in November. I can say, okay, bring all my Sedona images over from that trip, import them, and it will bring all the edits with it. Does that make sense? Because notice it's saying copy to a new location and import. I also am going to bring them into my home drive. So they're going to go as well. And then you tell it, well, where do you want them to go? Did that make sense? Yes, no?
Yeah. I just didn't realize that the Lightroom catalog ended up on the SSD. I figured it was on the laptop and the images were on the SSD. I didn't realize they were together.
On mine they are, because my catalogs always live on an external drive. Now, if you have a Lightroom catalog on your laptop, not on your external drive, then you're not going to be able to do it this way.
Okay.
If
I understand.
if your catalog is on another computer, then you're going to have to do an import from the drive. So let's actually let me hide Lightroom a second. Let's hide that. Let's just go to another drive that's got images on it. Well, let's go look at that Samsung Blue again. So let's look in here under locations and look at images. Here's that Sedona file. Come on. Of course, I picked something that had to have like 700 images in the folder. I should have picked the London one that had 3. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's do London. There we go. Okay. There's 3 image files here. See these XMP? See the XMPs after each one with the same file number? This is the edit data. So when I do the import, as long as I take all of this stuff and drag it over to my folder on my home computer, and then tell my home computer, add the images in this new folder, the edits will be with it, because these XMPs are attached to the actual image file.
Okay.
If you delete these, you'll still have your raw files, but the edits will be gone. But the XMP is actually the file that it stores your edits. Now, if this is something that drives you nuts, that is an option to save a DNG instead of a raw file when you're copying things over. Because if you save as a DNG, this XMP file is built into the DNG. So there's only one file. So your edits always travel with the image. That's the advantage of a DNG.
Blair had a question too.
Yes.
On a dual camera card, do you record RAW ×2 or RAW and JPEG, and how do you handle import? Would you import RAW to a folder and then JPEG to a folder, or both in the same?
Okay, so the question, let me look at that question again.
Blair?
Okay, dual card camera. Oh, so like you have 2 cards in your camera, and one is recording RAWs and one is recording JPEGs. I don't do that. I don't. The only time I'll ever shoot JPEGs is if I happen to be using an in-camera, say black and white filter that I want to have saved as well. Would I import the RAW to a folder and then JPEG to a folder, or both in the same folder? That's housekeeping that makes sense to you. Personally, I would put them all in the same folder and know that the JPEGs are there for a reason. So yes, if the way you think, let's say for example you're a Fuji shooter. A lot of Fuji shooters are very enamored with the Fujifilm film simulations, and when they are brought in, they end up being a JPEG because it captures a RAW that stuff gets scrubbed out of as well. So you can then shoot a black and white and color at the same time. So if you wanted your Fuji JPEG black and whites to be in a separate folder, that's fine. Or they can be in the same folder. I wish there was a concrete answer, but there isn't. It's what makes sense to you. So either or, whatever makes sense. All right, where were we? Oh, we got a bunch more images. Do I really need any of these? We can go through no, that's X, no, X, 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 X. I don't think I need any of these. No, X, X. Don't know what the heck I was taking a picture of there. I don't know what that building was. Must have been a story being going on. No, I have better shots of this thing during sunrise. So I don't need any of these. There's nothing in here that I want to keep. I guess that's an osprey nest. Yeah. Wow. I took a lot of pictures. I was just enamored with the harbor at Portland, Maine. No. Ooh, that's got potential. That can stay. No. No. And again, what's the potential for me? Because I also paint, so I could turn that into a painting. Oh, apparently I took this because there was a bald eagle there. But it's so tiny. I didn't have the right lens. It's grooming itself. So, yeah, that's the whole thing about wildlife. If it's not going to cooperate, I'm not going to take your picture. So XXX, I think that was, oh, it's a bird. Okay. Yeah, they're all gone. So, of all these images edited, really, I didn't want most of them. So, again, I'll come up to Photo, delete rejected photos, and they're gone. I don't even, there's no reason to ever see them again because they're just going to bloat your catalog. Plus, no one is paying you extra money to sort through images that really weren't that good. And I need to get better at this than I have been in the past. And I'm sure here's what happens. You'll capture an image. Do I really need this? No. But for some reason I got to keep it because I might want to play with it. But what's going to happen is you're going to see a picture and all right, here's a tugboat. Oh, there's a tugboat here. Maybe I will take that tugboat out and put it in another picture someday. Yeah, you're not. Really, probably not. Me, I actually might use it. I actually might, use that as a study if I need a reference for a tugboat to add in my watercolors because I'm really into tugboats. I might use that. But as far as the rest of the photographs goes, not really. This, I like the boat for the angle, again, for watercolor painting. But as a photograph, would I keep that? No. All right, so what other questions have I not answered that you guys might have as far as this organizational stuff goes?
Did you get Mel's raid question?
Mel's raid question. Oh, Mel. All right, Mel, unmute yourself. Tell me what your raid question was. No? Do you remember what it was, Di?
I also need to get a larger RAID 1 drive. Is
Okay.
it okay to just copy the files to a new drive and keep the old catalog?
Oh, so all right. So if you get a new drive, be it a RAID or not, can you simply copy everything over along with the old catalog?
6 terabyte drives are full, so I'm going to 10.
Okay.
And I just wondered, I was just going to move the images to the new drives, but I wasn't going to.
Yes, you can do that. It may, when you open up the catalog.
Have Lightroom make this switch.
Yes, if you do it from within Lightroom, it will see it. If you do it external of Lightroom, it will not. But since everything's going to be in the same structure, once you import one, it should see most everything else. But you're better off doing it in Lightroom. So connect the drives, go to this folders thing here, and literally copy them from one drive to the other.
Correct.
Okay.
I
Oh,
was
what?
going to create a new catalog, and I was just wondering if that was a mistake.
Well, if you create a new catalog, you're really starting from scratch. Now, it depends if your if your old catalog's in a bad way, then yeah, do it. But if it's not, you can copy your old catalog over. It's not a problem.
What do you have to copy the catalog if you do it in Lightroom? If you just do it in Lightroom and move the images from one drive to another, won't Lightroom?
Well, the problem with that is the catalog's going to still be on your old drive unless it's on your internal.
I have it on my internal.
Oh, then it's fine. Then you can just do that. Yeah, just drag them over within Lightroom, drag them over to the new drive. It'll copy everything there. Do it within the folders here. So if I had, let's say I needed to drag this little red folder over to this new drive, you can do that. And Lightroom will see it and everything will remain linked because it will see you moving it in here. It's when you move stuff outside of Lightroom that it loses the link.
File, not your photos.
Oh, well, all right. Okay. That's a good question. So when you're quitting Lightroom, it asks you, do you want to back up the catalog? In fact, let's just do that. That's important. That's a good question. So I'm going to quit Lightroom. So I quit Lightroom Classic, and it asks me, do you want to back up the catalog? And you should do it once a week. It's a good idea. What it's saying is it's just backing up the catalog. And what is the catalog? The catalog is all of your previews and the file that maintains the links from Lightroom to your image files. It is not touching your image files themselves. It is not actually backing them up. To do that, you need a separate backup software that's going to back up an entire drive that your images are on. This is doing is it's backing up the catalog, which is the list of your files and your previews. That makes sense? Clear on that? Okay. Actually, I've already told that I'm quitting, so I can skip this time and I'll just have to restart it again. So let's go ahead and restart Lightroom. I don't know who came up with this new image. It bothers me. I have to see it every time Lightroom starts. It's really quite annoying. I bet Julianne was involved in this.
No, it has a head.
Oh, okay. Okay. So back to our travel catalog. Okay, what did I want? I want my collections, and I want to go back to my Zoom demo images because it's time to start to involve the develop module. Now, up on the top, we've got all these modules here. Most of them, other than library, develop, and print, you're never going to use these things. Map. Well, do you want to map out to see where stuff is? I mean, it can do that. It'll tell you that there are 7 images that it recognizes from here, which is Horseshoe Bend. There's some in the United Kingdom. If you need to have Lightroom tell you where the images were taken, so be it. Not something I need to do. Book. The book module is just what it says. It's to create book pages. Personally, I find it dreadful. If you want to lay out a book, I think you're better off in a desktop publishing program, or if you're a Mac user, or even something like Microsoft Word or Apple's Pages. It will do books, and you can send them right to Blurb and other places to have books made. Don't recommend it, though, because if you want to do text, the ability to use text and how you place it is very limited. Slideshows in Lightroom are pretty dreadful. They're very limited. In a pinch, you can use it to just have images go by. Don't recommend it. The print module in Lightroom is good. I don't usually print from Lightroom that often, but yes, we'll talk about this tomorrow. Web, for actually creating web galleries of your image. Handy if you want to share a bunch of images online. I don't know anybody that would actually use this for their website. So really the two that we're after, library and develop, and then when we're ready to send out to our printers, it will be print. And yes, one of these days I'll get around to editing this. This is actually a big puddle, and this was shot with an iPhone, with the iPhone just above the water. So the puddle, it looks like a lake. The puddle actually isn't all that big. Anyway, back to our grid. So let's go up to the top. And let's bring up this lovely image. So we've covered library stuff, and I'll answer any new questions about library you might have if they come up. And if not today, you think of something that you want to get into tomorrow, then bring it up then. But develop module is where all the fun happens. This is where the editing takes place. Over on the left-hand side, we've got our collections. History. So the cool thing about history is it is stored with the image file. You could come back 20 years from now and it will show you all the steps that you did on that image, and you can back them up at any time. The reason for that is all of the edits you do in Lightroom are not actually happening. All it is doing is it's showing you on this thumbnail representation of the image what you are going to do to the image, what will happen if and when you export it or print it. It will get built into another file. You're not actually doing anything to an image, which is one of the reasons that technically the order that you do your image edits, with one exception, are meaningless because they're not actually being done. Now, technically, according to Adobe, there are certain things that will speed up processing if you do them first, but most of us are not moving that fast in the software that we're waiting for the computer to finish. It's the other way around. Also, as you're going through these menus, let me close all my menus here. If I open this and I go down to the next one and open it up, notice that the first one closes. I find this a great tool because then I don't have all these windows to go through every time. And the way you do that, I don't know why that came up, is you control or right click in the gray next to the title, and you have this option called solo mode. And what solo mode does is when you open a tab, it closes all the other ones. So I find that handy. On the left side, I don't usually do that because when I'm in the library module anyway, I find myself using collections and the catalog frequently. So notice on the left side, that's not the case. I don't have solo mode turned on here, but the left and the right operate separately. So if I open up one on the right, it's in solo mode. If I wanted solo mode on the left, I would have to tell it there also. Also, I don't use publish services, so there's no reason for me to see it on my screen, so I can just uncheck it, and now it's gone. It's no longer there. So back to the develop module. This is where all the fun happens. And if you in the past you've mostly used, say, Adobe Camera Raw instead of Lightroom, there are certain things that Lightroom does that Adobe Camera Raw cannot do that are extremely powerful. So let's get into it. So in the develop module, we start up on the top with the histogram, and you take a look at this image. And this happens to all of us. You take a shot out in the field and you see something like this. It doesn't look like this way to your eyes at all. Yet this is a perfect exposure for this place, because look at the histogram up here. What did I need to do on this image? I needed to protect the clouds. They were important. And if you look at the right side of the histogram, it is not hitting the right edge, because if it was, this little box up here would be lit up to show highlight clipping. Extremely important that this does not happen. Now, I used my histogram in my camera to make sure that did not happen. On the left-hand side, it's telling me there are some clipping. This is shadow clipping. That means there's some pixels in this image that are pure black. So if I click that on, they'll stay blue. And if I zoom in, look, there they are. Gee, the bottoms of these rocks or these shadows are pure black. Do I care? No, I don't care. That's not important. What was important was the clouds. So let's start at the top. Now, a lot of the new advanced stuff is up in here, particularly in the masking panel, which is this thing. We will get into that tomorrow. I want to go over the more basic stuff tonight because we've already gone through a lot of time. Now, some people like to start by doing auto. I don't, but some people do. So if you want to click on auto and let it see what it does with the image, it gets you a start. In this particular image, does it work? Yeah, it's okay. I would have done what these things are. The difference would be is I would have brought the shadows all the way up. Other than that, and I brought the highlights all the way down. When I do that, that gives me a little bit more headroom on the right-hand side. There's a little bit bigger gap here, which means I can bring the exposure up a little more. Now, you might be thinking, well, Joe, the image is starting to get a little flat. It's lost its contrast in here, and that is true. There's a reason for that, because I'm going to do some sliders that are going to affect that. Now, I'm going to reset this, because I don't typically like to use auto. When I see an image like this, I'll automatically bring the shadow slider all the way up. I'll bring the highlight slider all the way down. And again, everything got dark because now I have some room to open up the entire image. Yes, it's made it flat. Stay tuned, because these sliders down below are going to start to affect that. What do? Presence. Texture is very fine detail sharpness. Can't really see it unless let's zoom into 100%. You can kind of see in the rocks on the face, you can start to see it starting to show up. Clarity is more mid-tone contrast sharpness, so that adds contrast to the mid-tones. Dehaze, let me back off on that. Dehaze will sharpen and contrast everywhere. So if I do that, okay, because you can see now we've gotten some of the blacks back. Color-wise, vibrance affects the cool and desaturated colors. So like a really pale tan or blues and greens are going to get boosted as we move the vibrance slider up. And you can see particularly the sky and the grasses get affected here, and that's good, that's fine. Saturation moves all of the colors up at the same time, same amount. So saturation will just make it more saturated. So I'll be a little careful with that. I got a little too saturated in here. I'm going to end up dealing with that separately. So what else is going on? The image could really be a little brighter even. Let's bring that up a little bit more. And even just that quickly by moving those sliders, we've gone from there to there. And by the way, When you're in the develop module, if you hit the backslash key, it will show you the before and after. If you want to have a before and after that you can actually look at them next to each other, what you do is you make what's called a virtual copy, and this is something unique to Lightroom. And the keyboard shortcut is Command or Control apostrophe. And if I click that, notice what it does is it makes a copy of it. I can then reset that, and I will have one I can leave that way. So if I wanted to see the two of them side by side, I can hold the Command key, and there's a shortcut called C, which is compare, which will show me the before and after next to each other. So just so you know that's there. Okay. We're back. We ended up back in the library. Sorry, back in the develop module. So what else is here do I want to do? Maybe a little contrast. Okay, fine. Is there more we could do? Well, what else is the problem here? Because of the lens, I think the image got a little too vertical. I think it should be spread out left to right. Maybe it was the wrong focal length. Let's hit the I key, which will show us our settings. Oops. So I hit I, and there it shows me the camera. It shows me it was shot at 17 millimeters and 400 ISO. And if I hit I again, it shows me the resolution and the date and the name of the file. Okay, fine. I think it should be spread out left to right a little bit. So we're going to jump down to the bottom. As I scroll down, we're going to go to transform. And what I'm going to do on transform is change the aspect ratio of the image. And I'm going to drag it to the left, and look what happens. I get to spread it out a little bit, or a lot of it. I just think it needs about there. Just need a little bit more wide angle. I can scale it down so I can see everything that's going on. And you can see as it brought it in, there was some lens distortion it was apparently fixing for. Well, we have a slider for that too. Let's leave that there for a minute and come up to lens corrections. And then under manual, we've got distortion controls. And you can see we can straighten this out by dragging that over. And then I can hit constrain crop, which will get rid of all the stuff that was no longer an image. So let's come back down to transform. Is there anything else in here we want to do? Nope, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's go to detail. Now, detail is sharpening. However, there's something new in here, and it's noise reduction, which you can only do on raw files. As soon as you make it not a raw file, then you can't do this. But if I click on denoise, what it's going to do is show us a bit of the screen. I think it's 300% or 500%, I forget, where it zooms in. And if you click on it on and off, you can see, since this, remember how dark this was in the foreground, there's a lot of color noise in there at this magnification. But as soon as we let it go, it shows you how the denoise is going to get rid of it. It actually does a pretty amazing job on it. By the way, there's also, you can only do one or the other on this. There's also the new super resolution. So if you're shooting whatever megapixel camera and you want more, you can actually have Lightroom and do that for you. Now it's saying enhance two images because I have two images selected down here. Whatever, I'll let it do its thing. So yeah, question.
There's a question on if you get crazy with the editing, how do you reset?
Okay, good question. What happens if you get really crazy with the editing, or you get up and the cat comes in and walks across the keyboard and you've got all kinds of weird stuff going on? It depends how bad it got. However, one easy way to do is to come over on the left-hand side when you're in the develop module, and it will show you the history of everything you've done to that image. Actually, it was this one here. Now, notice this one now says enhanced NR1 DNG. This is the same image that has been had the noise taken out of it, because I had two different images here. Let's see, actually, where's our original? Well, here's our raw file. Come on, it's taking its time catching up. I'm waiting. For some reason it's stuck on that. Okay. Anyway, oh, okay, here's the one we were working on. So in the history panel, you see these are all the things that were done to this image. And at any point, I can come back and undo it. And you can see the last thing we did was the constrained crop after our fixing the distortion. But as we come down, it will take you back in history as to what it was that you did to the image. So that's one way. There's another way. Let's say I'm in here and I go to the basic panel and I don't like one of the presence things that I did. Let's say I decide I don't like the dehaze in there. Two things you can do. One, I can grab the slider and zero it, or I can type 0 in where it says plus 13, or 18. I can double click on the word dehaze and it resets that one to 0. Let's say I don't like any of the stuff that was done in this presence panel. I can double click on the word presence and it resets everything in that particular panel. I'm going to put them back though, because I liked them where they were. So you can either double click on the word to reset the one. And if I double click on shadows, it puts it back in the middle. Or I can double click on the subheading, tone, white balance, presence, and then reset each of those. Again, if I just want to step back, I can go back to whatever these places that I left off, and it will take us right back to that point. So if I go back to our perspective scale and then change my mind and say, no, let me go back to where I was, they're both there. So the nice thing is it's non-destructive when you go back in history. If you actually reset the sliders, you're going to have to go put them back or go into the history panel and fix them.
And then the reset button down at the bottom just resets.
The reset, yes, this reset button down here starts you from scratch. So somebody asked, when do I use Mel asked, when do I use the white and black sliders? Rarely, actually. Only usually if I want to bring down the whites or bring up the blacks. Actually, in this image, I might find myself bringing up the blacks in this stream here, but I'm not going to do it to the entire image. So if I bring the blacks down, that'll make just the blacks darker, which is actually not terrible in this particular image. Same thing with whites. If I'm having problems with the white highlights in the clouds, I could bring them down. In this particular image, since the image was safe as far as the histogram was concerned, I didn't feel a need to do it on this image, but yes, occasionally that will come up. That's just that's the basic sliders, and they're fairly obvious. There is a black and white one. I think we'll save that for tomorrow. Next one down is tone curve. And tone curve is, if you ever used curves in Photoshop, it's the same thing. You can use it the same way or you can use it differently. One of the nice things is this thing here, this little pointed button. And if I click on that and decide, well, you know what? This part of the image is too dark. If I click right in there, look at the curve line, in the curve histogram on the right-hand side, you see a circle appear. It's showing you that's where on the histogram that color tone is. If I push up, it will brighten that tone. If I bring it down, it will darken. So I might find that darkening that just a little bit, just a little, might be the answer for that one. Conversely, if I hit it again and come up to the gray in the clouds, maybe I want to darken that a little bit. I don't use the tone curve very often. In fact, actually, I really hardly use it at all. I find myself doing through here, using the color mixer, I will adjust the luminance, which does a similar thing. So if I click here, choose luminance, and click in here, I can brighten up just that color rather than the entire area. This does it just by color. I like that a lot. And like I mentioned, I thought this green might have been a little bit too green. So I can come to saturation here, click and pull down. I can make all the greens go gray, or I can bring them down just a little bit. And then hue, if I wanted to change, what don't I like the color of? Oh, let's say I don't like the color of the green. It's fine, but let's say I didn't. If I wanted to push it over to fake green or dead green grass, I can do that. But let's say I just want to make it a little less supernatural green, something like that, to take away the focus on it. That would be an option to do. Now, one of the new things in Lightroom that I love is this thing. This is new, point color. I find myself using this all the time now, particularly in skies. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper, bring it up to the sky, click on there, and it shows you where on this palette that color lies. And I find skies have a tendency to be a little close to the cyan side, which is over here. I usually like them a little bit warmer. So I will go to the hue shift and push it over to the right a little bit. And you can see you could make it purple. I don't want to go that far, but just a little bit over. And while I'm here, I can increase the saturation. That I realize I need to bring the hue over a little more. And then there's luminance, brightness, dark. Let's make it a little brighter. Now the sky has just gotten more intense. I love this thing. Conversely, or in addition, I can come get this, I don't know what this brush is. It should be redder than that. I can even just drag on it and look, I can make it go super red. But from what I remember with my eyes, it was closer to about there. And while I'm at it, I'm going to make it brighter. And look what it does to the image. Look what we can do. Bring out those particular colors. I think that looks so much better. So this is a great tool. Now, as long as we're at it, let's come up to this kind of gray-green on the hillside and make it a little greener. And while we're at it, add some brightness to that. So we'll bring up the luminance of that green. Now that affected down here as well, which I don't like, but just so you could see it. And there's now eyeballs on each subpanel. So if I hold down on the eyeball, it will show you with the effects from that panel turned off. And look what that did to the image. Look how much life that added in. So that's a very cool tool. I've become a huge fan of the point color tool. Use that all the time. Color grading, I really dislike. First of all, it's not a image editing term. It's a video editing term. And it's very touchy-feely. If you're just doing designy kind of stuff and you want to take the midtones and, rotate this around and see if something happens that you like, it's really hit or miss. And by the way, for all this editing, keep in mind that Lightroom is assuming you have a calibrated monitor. It's assuming that your color on your screen is correct. And you have shadow and highlights, blah, blah, blah. But I personally don't like the color grading. I much prefer the color mixer and the point color. Detail we've talked about. Oh, but one thing we did not talk about, we did the denoise already, although not on that file. And I'll show you the effect in a second. But let's say I want to add a bunch of sharpening. Let's zoom into 100%. So I can come up here and click on 100%. Let's zoom in. No, let's pick over here in this grass. So if I bring the sharpness slider, even affects the brightness. I'm going to really sharpen this thing up. But I don't want it to sharpen everywhere. I sure as heck don't want it to sharpen the sky because that's just going to make it grainier because there's nothing to sharpen there. So what you do is hold the masking slider right here. Hold down the Alt key. Click on the masking slider. It turns everything white. And as you drag off to the right, it gets more selective. And the further off you go, and what's going on is only the things that are in white are going to get sharpened. Everything else is left alone. So you can add a lot of sharpening and have its effect minimized by doing that. Now in the denoise, let's go ahead. This is again the image that was not denoised. Let's go to 300%. What the heck? Let's go to 300% and look at all the noise in the sky. Now, not entirely fair because it's 300%. At 100%, it's kind of there, but it's not as obnoxious. But just so you can see, there's 300%. Let's denoise this one. So I'm just going to denoise this one file. And there you get to see. And look at the before and after, what it does to the noise in the image. It really is fairly remarkable. So I'll click on enhance, and what it actually does is it creates another file. It creates a noise reduced DNG file. And you'll see this, you see the ORF, which is my OM Olympus raw file. When it's done, it creates a new file. Here it is. And look at the clarity. This is the sky now at 300%. Look at it. It is quite nice. So the denoise thing in the latest version of Lightroom is very good. What else? Detail. Lens corrections. If you go to profile, if the software sees your lens, as it does do most, it will automatically fix your vignetting and any kind of barrel distortions that happen. This is enabled. Let's turn it off. And you see, notice how the edge distortion changes when I turn it off. But here's the weird thing. A lot of times we buy lenses, we like the vignette and the lens distortion the lens causes because it's kind of a characteristic of the lens. So this has it on. Honestly, I think I like it better turned off. Don't you? Sure, Joe, that looks better. I agree. So I'm going to turn off the lens profile. Yes, you can do it. Chromatic aberrations, if you're dealing with good glass and a good camera, it's pretty much non-existent anymore. I can turn it, tell it to remove it, but there's nothing in here that's giving you chromatic aberrations. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, let's say if you have a bare branch, it usually happens more over in the corner of an image. You'll get those kind of magenta green highlights around a very sharp, high contrast area. That's chromatic aberration. But again, if you have a good lens, it's pretty much non-existent anymore. Also, under manual, you have the ability to fix chromatic aberrations manually, and you have the distortion, which we played with earlier. Sometimes you might find you need to fix it. That's kind of weird, but and again, just hit undo and it'll go back. Now, there's a vignetting thing here, which is lens vignetting. Well, that's not the place I want you to do vignetting. I want you to do it under effects. We'll get there in a second. Transform we did, if you remember. We made the aspect. We stretched it out a little bit horizontally. Oh, just so you see it, you can actually do horizontal and actually change the perspective of the image like you're looking at it from the side. You'd then have to crop it differently. But if you have buildings, it can actually get kind of helpful. Lens blur. This is new. This has just been added. You can set a lens blur amount. Haven't even played with this yet. This is really a brand new feature. So we're both seeing it at the same time. And I don't know why I'd want to do that. I don't know. Maybe if you're doing product photography and you want that kind of short depth of field look without having actually done it. So it's there. This is under beta testing. So whatever. If you find it interesting, have at it. You no longer have to buy lens babies. Yeah.
I'm going to talk a little bit about monitor calibration.
Monitor calibration. Yes. Just a second and we will get to that. Under effects, one of the most single powerful things in Lightroom, and that is post-crop vignetting. 99% of my images get that. What is it? So my number is -12. Let's make it all the way. So there's what a vignette looks like. Underneath here, you have these controls. Midpoint. Well, how far in is it coming or how far out is it going? I usually stick to pretty much kind of in the middle. Roundness. Do you want a round one or you want it just going to the edges? I tend towards the round side, some kind of in the middle. Feather. How soft do you want the edges? Hard or you want it soft? Again, middle. Highlights. Do you want to leave the highlights alone in the vignette? So if you look in the cloud up top here, and I bring this back, it allows the highlights to shine through. I think that looks weird. So after you've got the vignette kind of where you want it, then back off on the amount. And for me, my default is generally -12. That's just a number I've settled on. I like it. Now, if you look away, it doesn't even look like I did anything. But if you hold in the eyeball, look at the difference. There's the vignette showing up. And what a vignette does is it has a subliminal message to you not to leave the image. Because as you start leaving the image, you hit this darker edge, which kind of bounces you back in. Calibration. Ooh, don't mess with this. It's because it's not monitor calibration. You're basically telling Lightroom override what I'm seeing on the monitor, because every time I send it out to print, they come out too blue. That's a real hit or miss way of doing it. So honestly, I would leave this alone. In fact, I hate it so much. I hate's a strong word. I'm going to control click in here and customize development panel and turn off calibration. I don't ever really want to see it again, because it's different from actual monitor calibration, which is something different that happens outside of Lightroom. Monitor calibration requires hardware, and you have to put what's called a colorimeter on your screen to have it measure the colors on your screen, and it will then automatically fix them to known constants. There's three places you can have calibrations. Your monitor, where the device and the software will make sure that your monitor color is as accurate as it can be. Camera calibration, which is a completely separate thing. I thought I had a color checker in here. I guess I don't. I'll show it to you tomorrow. Where it corrects color from the camera. And then printer calibration, where it does a test print so that what you see on your screen is what comes out on your printer, or what you send out to a lab. When I send out a 60-inch wide printout to a lab, believe me, it's on a calibrated system with calibrated color, because they get expensive. I want it to be right. They're perfect every time. This is a subject for another day. I am, excuse me, I am going to schedule an evening, might even make it 2 evenings, of digital color workflow from capture to edit to output, which will go through all the calibrations. It's not something I can tell you in a couple of minutes how it works. I need to show you the whole thing. But the beauty is, once you learn the digital color workflow and you understand calibration for your monitor, your camera, and your printer, or for your lab, the beautiful thing happens. The image you see on your screen is what comes out when you get prints done. And that's what we're all after. All right, back to our develop module. So we have this image that started here and now is here. It's better, but it needs more. What can we do? Well, just to give you a little bit of a preview of what we're going to do tomorrow, we're going to start to take advantage of the power. This is where the real power of Lightroom is the masking panel. And we're going to use some of the tools. I'm just going to start out. I'm going to show you the brush, which has been around since Lightroom's beginning practically. And of course, it has the keyboard shortcut of K, which is what you think of when you think of brush. Yeah, in Photoshop, what's the keyboard shortcut for brush? B, of course. So a K in Lightroom. And when you choose a brush, you have this control panel here. You've got the size, which you can also control by your mouse, which is a better way to do it. Feathering, how much area do you want? You see there's 2 circles here. How big a fade do you want from the inner circle to the outer circle? Flow, and density, which you're going to generally mostly leave alone. The big one is auto mask. If I turn off auto mask and I start painting with my brush, notice the green goes over the full inner circle and then fades out to the outer, but it goes everywhere it's covering. Let me undo that and turn on auto mask. Where'd my brush go? Okay, I just got rid of it. Okay, now if I turn on auto mask and I paint in that same area, even though the circle for the brush goes over the mountainside and the clouds, notice that now it's ignoring the clouds because it only will paint underneath. Let me bring this over, you can see it. See that plus sign in the middle of it? The things that match the tone. Now, is it always perfect? No, there was some dark gray in the clouds, so I got a little bit in there. So what do? Hold down the Alt key, which is the magic key of all things Adobe, because it's always going to do something. And it turns that plus to a minus. Then I can just click on that and it gets rid of it. And notice that it just affects there. Now I get all of my sliders that I had for the entire image, but just for the area that I brushed on. So if I bring up the exposure there and add some contrast, look what it just did. So what I want to kind of leave you with, and boy, I've edited one image for you, and I think I had 40 of them ready. So we're going to do a lot of image edits tomorrow in a lot of different kind of situations. But let's fix this. Let's make this image more interesting. How can we do that? Well, I'm going to do it all just using the brush. I'm not going to cheat and go into any of the advanced tools. I'm just going to keep hitting K to make new brushes. So what do I want to do? I want to add some more interest. I want to guide the viewer to over in here. So let's brighten that up. Do I want auto mask on? Actually, I'm going to keep it off. I want to get you looking over here. That's a little too dark in there. Maybe there as well. Basically, the places that are too dark that I think need to be lightened, I'm going to do that. Maybe a top of this brush. Oh, I think over in here as well. Yeah, I did end up leaving auto mask on. I think that rock's a little dark, and the side of that rock's a little dark. So let's bring up the exposure a little bit. And look, we can make it crazy, but you get to see what I'm doing. And I find that what works is, if I look off to the side and look out of my peripheral vision, when I'm starting to see the brightness change, that's what it needs. Just that much is good. Now, we've also got these rocks in the water that are really dark. Well, this is still live. I can start adding to here. Oh, look, it's making these rocks. And this little shore line, making those a little brighter as well. And I'm going to do a little path there to help you get out there. Good. In fact, as I'm at it, oh, no, that was too much. So let's undo that. Okay, let's do another brush. Let's hit K. This time I'm going to darken over here. And I think I made this maybe a little too bright. I want to darken those. So let's just take those and bring the exposure down. And while I'm at it, this thing right there, oh, that needed to be darker. Now I think the rocks are still too dark, so I'm going to do these dark rocks in the river and a little along the shoreline there. And here's a place where I will use the black slider because the blacks are just too dark. So let's scroll down till we see blacks, and let's bring the blacks up. And you can see I can make them actually go light. Let's bring them up. Lovely. I could keep messing with this. I'm going to do one more thing. Oh, I'm going to cheat. I told you I wasn't going to show you another mask. I'm going to show you one more. Those were all just done with the brush. Let's do a radial gradient. So I'm going to click on New Mask. We'll do radial gradient, which is just what it says. It's just a big round oval. So I'm going to make one like that. Put it in the middle because that's where I want you to go. I want to open that up a little bit. And again, the way gradients work, from the black to the red dot, anything in here will be 100%. Anything within this inner circle. From the red dot out to the white will fade from 50% to 0. So it's going to be a graduated change. Let's bring up the exposure a little bit. Ah, there we go. That looks better. But it now needs some more contrast. And I either need to add dehaze or blacks. Let's add some dehaze. Nope, not that much. Just like that. All right, last thing. What's the most important part of the image? And that's the most important thing about when you're doing editing. There's cool stuff going on here, and I can just hit enter and get rid of that stuff. But the clouds dominate. They're lovely clouds, but do I want the viewer's eye to go there? No, I'm going to crop it. Now remember, we did our post-crop vignette over here, that -12. So to do cropping, that's this tool right here, the crop tool. And you can see there's the rest of the image that we had stretched out. Well, I could decide, well, maybe I want that. So if I want to bring that back in, I can move my crop, come out to the edges, and get a little more left to right. And I think that's better. Now, oh, this got a little bright, didn't it? Ooh, K. One more brush. K. Let's bring the exposure down. Oh, we got to add blacks to it. Darken the blacks. Okay, good. Enter on that. We need to crop this. So let's hit crop. Crop, by the way, the keyboard shortcut for crop, of course, is the letter R. Yeah, you see what's happening here. if you click on custom, you have a bunch of presets. So if you like to do 8x10s, which are horrifically bad, or 4:6 ratio, or you're going to do a 16:9, or maybe you're going to print out to 11:17 paper. Let's try that. That makes it a little bit thinner. I want more. I have a printer that prints on legal size, and it prints, ooh, even a little thinner. Ooh, isn't that looking better? Because we're getting less of a percentage of the clouds to the rest of the image. Now, here's the other interesting thing. Notice my grid is not the rule of thirds. I don't like the rule of thirds for landscape. It's too far to the left and right if you try to follow these lines. Landscapes, even if you're going to put your subject off center, you don't want it over on the rule of thirds. And if you go under Tools to Crop Guide Overlay, here's the rule of thirds grid. And if we put this opening in the valley, this is the way out of the image. Oh, all the way over here, it just doesn't work. So rule of thirds, Crop Guide, golden ratio, and it gets it much closer to the center. So I hit enter on that, and there's our new crop. Well, what did that look like before? Let's go to full screen. Here's our crop. There's the original. Here's our new one. And by the way, watch this. Remember, even though we cropped the image, notice the vignette followed it. And we could take that even further. Let's make a virtual copy. Actually, let's make two virtual copies. Command apostrophe, Command apostrophe. So let's take the first one and change the crop. Let's say you want to print this, but it's got to fit in a standard frame size. Well, this is a standard frame size, but let's say Michael's has a sale, and I'm going to put 11x17s in. Slightly different shape. Not terrible. I could live with that. I'm going to change the crop a little bit, move it over to the right a smidge, and hit enter. Again, the vignette follows the new crop. To really prove it, let's go crazy here and make this one a vertical. I'm going to make it a 16:9 vertical. So 16:9, and then I grab the corners until they flip vertically. Whoops, I didn't want to rotate it. And put that in the middle, and we'll bring that up. Come on, come with me. Bring that up to the top, down to the bottom. I mean, that's an extreme crop difference, although it kind of works. So let's hit enter on that. And if we go to our vignette again, somehow I turned off the vignette. Okay, where's my -12? There's the vignette again. I think I might have cropped the wrong image. I did. I cropped the original instead of the edit. Anyway, but you see that each time you do it, the crop follows. And the other beauty is when you do a crop in Lightroom, it's not actually happening, because notice that when we go up to the crop tool, we still see all of the image that was there in the past, and it will always be there. The only time any of these edits actually get applied to an image is when you export it. So you export it as a JPEG or a TIFF to send out to a lab. You send it out to a printer, then the driver creates a new file for the printer. Or if I send this into Photoshop. Once I send it into Photoshop, this is no longer a raw file. These are still raw files we're dealing with. If I send this into Photoshop, which I can do right here, photo edit in Photoshop, and this is what we're going to be doing next week, by the way. So we go into Photoshop, and it opens up the file. There's our image. It is no longer a raw file. This is now what's called a bitmap. But then I can do all the cool Photoshop stuff to it, like, oh, just duplicate it, change the blending mode to overlay, drop down the percentage, and that quickly adds some pop to the image by having it go, whoops, wrong color, overlay, sorry. Have it go from there to there. See how it just adds the pop. And if I decide I like that and save it, I hit Command S. Notice on the bottom it says it's saving. It's going to now take this image, save it right back into Lightroom next to the original. So I Command Tab over to Lightroom, and here it is coming in. There's the new image. Notice now it says .psd, which is a Photoshop file. And your choice is you can make it a PSD or a TIFF file. But now this is actually a Photoshop file. But again, if you think that, let's go full screen again, that's what we started with back 20 minutes ago when we started doing the edit. We turned that into that. And that's the whole reason for knowing these softwares, because the images captured in our cameras don't reflect what we see with our eyes. This is much more the way I remember this place. My eyes obviously didn't see it this way because my eyes have a lot more tonal range than my camera does. That's why we need to know this stuff. And yeah, you might have thought, oh, I went too far with certain things. That's fine. I'm trying to show you the tools and what they do. Think of it as seasoning. You add as much as you want, not how much I want. Season for yourself. And be patient. Often, if you're doing an extreme edit like this, a lot of times it pays to do a certain amount of it and then come back to it the next day. And just to show you one more, I'm going to, just a virtual copy of that. Give it a second to draw in. I'm going to do my crop. Oops, I got the wrong one chosen. There we go. I'm going to do a crop, and this time I'm going to go extreme. Let's go to a 2:1. Go kind of a panoramic feel, and I think I might like this even better. So let's see how that looks. I like that. And again, turn the eyeball on and off, and the vignette moved with it. And then we end up with that, and now it's starting to look like a pretty cool image. Any questions? Anything else coming through, Di?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. Let me, you guys can unmute anybody that wants to ask anything live. Let's.
What happens if you do a little rotation on the image, lower the right-hand side a little bit?
Actually rotate it or skew it?
Skew it.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I could do.
I don't know. All right.
So, for example, I mean, I could actually literally rotate the thing here.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, you like that better?
Before and after.
You getting seasick yet? Do I like it better this way? Yeah, you know what? I might. It's not accurate because when the original was shot, it was shot level. But if as you look at it, you decide, you know what? I think it looks better rotated. I don't disagree with you. And let's make a virtual copy of that one. Whoops. And go to full screen and see which one we like better. So let's, I forgot to, I rotate that one. Okay. Let's reset that one. Okay, there's the original. Here's the rotated. So full. Which one you like better? Yeah, Bob, I think I agree with you. I think I do like that with a little bit of rotation. Yeah.
What's interesting is we know the water is running right to left, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I think you're correct.
Because it looks like it's going up. I don't know, because it looks like in the background there it's going uphill.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you mean back over here?
Yeah.
That's a road.
That's a road. Oh, that's right.
Yes. This, by the way, is in the Lake District in England, northern England. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
Before you import into Photoshop, you should always make a virtual copy.
No, doesn't matter because as soon as you send it into Photoshop, it's going to make a copy. Because when the
Destroys the raw file.
no, it doesn't. You cannot do anything to a raw file. You can't edit it. You can't destroy it. So if I come out of full screen here, All those images I sent in are still here. Notice all the ones that have ORF on them?
Yes.
Those are all the raw files. So when you send a file from Lightroom into Photoshop, what it does is it takes all the edits that you've done so far and it builds them into the data. So it's actually creating a new file, and it is no longer a raw in Photoshop. So it's making a copy of whatever you have your raw file here. You can't actually edit a raw file.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thank you.
it's always editing a copy of it. Lightroom isn't actually, as I mentioned, it isn't doing anything. I can take any of these images that we've been playing with and reset them. If I click on the reset button, everything we just did is done. It's gone.
Wow.
Because you're not actually doing what that's called is non-destructive editing.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the beauty of working in the two of them. So if you're working with Lightroom and Photoshop together, you'll always have your raw files safe and sound.
Okay.
Don't you have to pull the images into Photoshop to make JPEGs?
No. If let's say I want a JPEG of this. I go to File, Export. I do this all the time. Like when you guys get my newsletter, those are all JPEGs. So if I want to put this in, let's see, I'll just put it here for now. That's fine. I tell it where I want it to go. I want a JPEG for the newsletter. They're typically 70% quality. Long edge, I typically do 1400 pixels. And I hit export, and it makes a JPEG of that size. But again, it's making a copy to do that. It's still not touching the raw file. Every time you do an export, it's creating a new file. Anything else? So what I would ask you guys is, before you join me tomorrow night, think about it. I would love to have more questions. So think about questions you might have about what we've covered and maybe what we haven't. Tomorrow we're going to get into the deep end of the pool with Lightroom, with some of its really amazing transformations it can do for color and light to really bring things to life. We'll get into because Lightroom's new masking capabilities and the selections that you can make in many cases are much more advanced than even Photoshop's. There are things that Lightroom can do selection-wise automatically that Photoshop cannot do yet. It doesn't do everything. There's still things I see in these images that I would definitely take it into Photoshop, but that's what we save for next week. So think about it, make some notes, think about what it is that maybe I've missed or I didn't answer the way that you were hoping for. So whether it be organization or some of the editing stuff, make some notes and get back to me tomorrow, and let's start out with those questions. All right. So if there's no more questions, it's 9:15. So let's call it an evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. And yes. All right, Tom Miller, presets. Great question. Yes, I do want to spend some time on that. Do me a favor, right when we start tomorrow, that's the first thing we'll do. Because presets are handy. I'll show you how you can create your own custom ones, and it's really easy, and it's easy to apply them. So until then, thank you all. Have a good night. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you tomorrow.